Hi everyone, I'm Christina Wedgwood, the Director of Intelligent Inc. and the author of M.E.D.I.A, A More Authentic Path to the Reluctant Thought Leader. I'm thrilled to be talking to Prosper on the Online Prosperity Show, where we're going to talk about authenticity, sharing your ideas, and how thought leadership is actually one of the most generous forms of contribution. So I hope that you are ready to start getting your ideas out there.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your premier destination for exclusive insights into the journeys of remarkable individuals that are shaping the world. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we've got a guest whose story is sure to inspire you and enlighten you all at the same time. Christina, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. I think it's time for us to do better, right?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. We all can.
Absolutely. Well, I had fun reading this. Thank you so much for sending it ahead of time. Some people want me to talk about their books right as they are there online, and it can never be possible. So I really appreciate, and it was a really good read. You could see I did a number on your book. I'm sorry, but I think you're going to have to send me a new copy because people are going to see this in my library and then they're going to think, ooh, what?
There is no greater compliment than seeing it with post-it notes or highlighter pen or notes scribbled in the side.
Oh, it shouldn't be as good as being kept in a museum, no?
No. You want it dog-eared and, referenceable.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And for those that are watching right now, yes, I am fanboying because Christina just came up with a really great book, M.E.D.I.A, which is a more authentic path for the reluctant thought leader. And everybody else is just on about being a thought leader, but have you ever thought about what it means to be a better thought leader and to also help those around you be, do, and have a happier existence, along the way? So we're going to be discussing all of that and how the idea of this book came about and everything else in between. So you might be wondering, Christina is the founder and director of Intelligent Inc. That's a New Zealand-based agency that specializes in thought leadership and book coaching. So since 2011, Christina has been empowering visionaries to transform their ideas into impactful narratives, and she's been guiding them through the intricate process of authorship. And there's one thing that I have noticed: a lot of people want to be an authority, but have you ever noticed in the word authority there is the word author in there? So many people skip that part. We're going to be talking about that aspect and a lot more. So in her recent book, M.E.D.I.A, A More Authentic Path for a Reluctant Thought Leader, she actually challenges conventional norms and notions of influence and actually encourages authentic expression. And when I was reading this book, I was going through a lot of stuff because I was unlearning a whole bunch of the things that I had learned before. So you can imagine, I've got a lot of questions. So, but before we dive into her professional journey, I just thought we'll start off on a light-hearted note, Christina. I mean, sure. You once aspired to be a road worker, holding those stop-go signs. Do you know what we call them in Australia?
No.
It's called a lollipop. All right.
Yes. Same in New Zealand.
Absolutely right. And then pretty much after that, you then wanted to be an ice cream driver. So something about sweets here, because you just wanted a career that represented the sweeter things of life. Am I wrong?
I think so. What's hilarious is that I'm actually allergic to dairy. So me in an ice cream truck would have been I would not have been eating the profits unless I'd managed to cotton on many years before anyone else did to coconut ice cream, like it's been popularized now. So yeah, that emerged later, but certainly I thought I could drive around all day and eat ice cream. That would be a pretty good job.
Oh my. And I can only imagine, because as a kid, when you hear that ice cream truck, it just really, they stop doing whatever they're doing and they're just standing out there, and the parents are guilted into wanting to buy that. So that would have been lucrative, but I don't think it would have been a better option to what it is now, because when I read this, there was nothing sweet about this. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I can't wait to jump into this. But obviously, let's maybe look at that alone and look at where it all started. So what happened when you couldn't be a lollipop lady or ice cream truck person?
Well, probably a sense of reality came in at some stage. I loved reading always, and my mum is a teacher, and so I would spend a lot of time at school, before school and after school, while she had staff meetings and similar, sitting with my back against the very old metal heating panels that we had in our old classrooms with a book in my hand. I just devoured like anything and everything words that I could. So I went through school, I did university, I did a Bachelor of Communications, and I thought I was going to become a journalist. And the more I learned about the news and what makes the news and kind of how the news is put together, the less I wanted to be in that world. So I actually flipped to the other side of the fence and started my career in public relations. I did that. I did a marketing sort of comms role, and then found myself at the crossroads of redundancy. I was still in my mid-20s. My husband had a career challenge at the same time, and we had only a few months earlier got married. A few months prior to that, bought our first house. So we sat there one Friday afternoon and went, shit. I'm sorry, I'm probably not supposed to say that. But goodness, what are we going to do? And our deal that we made was the first one of us that finds a job takes that job. The other one gets to have a little bit more time to figure out what they want to do. Now, my husband is an incredible salesperson. He could sell ice to Eskimos. And so he charmed his way into an organization, which was a complete career change for him, but convinced them that they needed him, which meant that I was the one that got the luxury of spending a bit more time figuring it out. And I guess that started me trying to craft the career that I wanted. I didn't know what it quite was yet or how I was going to make money doing this, but I started a copywriting agency, and I started that because I saw too many examples everywhere all the time of great work, great ideas, great services, even bringing great food on menus, which was just totally undermined by typos and grammatical errors. And I was just like, this is such a waste. So initially, that was what I set out to change. I wanted to make sure that people could elevate the great stuff that they were doing without undermining themselves with those things. And then we sort of just evolved from there. We did PR for a number of years. And then we sort of sold off that part of the business, I guess, and went down the thought leadership path, which has led us to here.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us on that journey, because all I would have thought is you just sitting outside the school gates and looking down the road to see if the ice cream truck was coming, or the construction people are showing you how quick they are working. Either they're working slow or they're telling people that, to go and things of that nature. Now, you did mention mom was a teacher, all right? And I would, venture to think that if mom was a teacher, was there any expectation on your part to obviously do well in your school grades?
Yeah, I would say so. She was a primary school teacher, so she taught at the primary school that I went to and was my teacher in year one. I remember being told off by my dad because I couldn't quite keep straight in my little 5.5-year-old brain that I wasn't allowed to call her mum when I was at school. So I would slip out. It would slip out sometimes in the classroom, and he would kind of give me a bit of a disapproving lecture about, what I needed to call her when I was at school. But yeah, I mean, they had the same sort of expectation, I think, that any parent does or hopes for their kids. I think where I was maybe a little bit different is I was quite young for my year level. My birthday is right on that cutoff of like, will she be a year one again or will we put her in year two? And I went through as a very young, so I started university before I turned 18, which meant no O-week socializing for me. I wasn't allowed in the uni bar. But yeah, I think there was a little bit of wanting to keep, needing to prove that I could keep up, based on not necessarily being as old as my peers.
Absolutely. And also, when you then, like you said, made redundant in your 20s, and that was the time when you were obviously trying to figure out life, house, and, you'd only just sort of maybe settled in and things of that nature. You and your husband, you say you gave each other, some sort of a plan or deal, which you referred to. You ended up having the luxury of having to create your own path. That's an interesting choice of words. Is it luxurious to set up your own business and get started as an
not always. No, I can't say it's all been a luxurious ride, but I think it was, I guess by that I mean he initially removed that, goodness, we're both out of work, 2 steps from being homeless sort of pressure from me. So I think the luxury was just a bit more time I didn't have to anymore accept the very first thing from the very first person that would pay me to do something. I had time to figure out what I wanted to do. So no, I've got a brother, you'll be interested in this. My younger brother is almost 2 years younger than me, and he's a maths genius. And he trained as a chartered accountant. He's in corporate finance, and he used to tell me every year around the anniversary of starting my business, he would update me on exactly the statistics of how many businesses have failed by, the 1 year point or the 2 year point or the 5 year point. It took him at least that long to stop telling me which little slither of statistic I was in for the fact that I was still going and still standing. It was a bit of a backhanded compliment, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, some people may respond to negative reinforcement because I'm supposing that would have kept you going because you didn't want to be a statistic, right?
No. I knew I was in the minority based on what he was saying of actually still figuring it out.
Absolutely. Now, Christina, also the way you started your business, you were literally going to people and, for lack of a better word, telling them that what they were doing was mediocre. All right. Like if you if you are going to people and telling them, you've got spelling mistakes here and there, and your work is not right. What was it like, when you started that journey in business, and especially if you're confronting people by telling them, hey, I'm the grammar
Yeah.
Nazi here. All right. So
I'm a very polite pleaser, so that was not a comfortable way to go about anything. I used to say to them, as tactfully as possible, have you thought about maybe engaging a professional editor for this, for what you've put out there, for your website or for your whatever? And I would do a little sample of so I'd take a little piece, a paragraph, say, of their work and rewrite it for them and use that as kind of here's what you're missing out on if you don't engage a professional. Here's where someone could take this a little bit further so that it was something that represented you better. And I think people loved that because they loved being, it was about them still. Everybody loves reading or hearing fabulous things about themselves. So the fact that I could polish and reframe them talking about their own selves or their own product or service and feed that back to them I think that was quite a heady, heady offer. But yeah, it was hard to toe the line of telling you that what you've got's crap. And showing you that I could make it better as well.
Absolutely. No, because you were only working towards making it better, right? So, it's one of those things. But yes, that initial sort of start and that initial conversation is sort of like telling somebody your baby's ugly, and then they're just thinking to themselves, I don't know how to take this from then on. So you went on and while you were doing while you're doing the copywriting stuff, you also incorporated your experience in PR and marketing, and you started working with thought leaders. Now, for those that may be hearing this word for the very first time, what is a thought leader?
Leader is someone who leads with their thinking or with their ideas. So they're people that are trying to contribute to or further a conversation and have an impact based on what they know. So often, particularly in the New Zealand and Australian sort of industry, they're often what I would refer to as practicing professionals. So they are people who we have less the career thought leader kind of thing here. Instead, we have people who are great at what they do. They're delivering amazing results based on their sort of methods or frameworks or perspective in their one-on-one or consultancy work. And a thought leader is basically just scaling the impact of their ideas beyond the people that they can deliver them to in that one-on-one basis. So they can see the potential to help more people if their ideas had a bit wider reach.
But I mean, obviously, while you're talking, I was looking at a part where you actually refer to these types of people. I'm looking at page 16 of your book, and it's just right at the bottom there. It says, Jack may be special, but he's not unique. Not on the surface, at least. Jack's your archetypal thought leader, and chances are you can call to mind any other number of Jacks you've seen both off and on the stage. We've all come across them. We've been influenced by them. These characters, they're hard to escape. Prominent as they are, you will have seen them on social media, been forwarded and linked to their articles, listened to their interviews and things of that nature. Okay. And they seem to be everywhere. Does that mean everyone is a thought leader then?
Not necessarily, but I think more people are building or exhibiting thought leadership than the people who identify with that label.
But most of these people are the ones that talk a lot. They're the talkative types. They they roughly have the same sort of number of ideas. I'm looking at page 24, and the problem is these people are the loudest and usually forceful people at sharing their ideas. So does that mean also, even though these people are out there and everything else, just because they're loud, we shouldn't just go by what they say, so to speak?
Loud doesn't always mean better. I think there's a definitely an archetype, and it's the charismatic, the smooth talking, the compelling, sometimes forceful, but actually sometimes, less force exerted, but they're slick in what they're saying. That archetype, it finds its place because there will be a group of people who love that and lap that up with those ideas. They're falling for it hook, line, well, not falling for it, but they're there for it hook, line and sinker. There will be other people who sit on the fence and sort of get a bit skeptical of people like that. I personally think I fall into the latter camp, where the more sort of slick and polished and presenter-like, rehearsed seeming somebody is, the more my guard goes up, typically. But yeah, they still find resonance with people.
So in the sort of latest political scene, would you say somebody like Trump represents the former of what we spoke about? Obviously, they're a social butterfly. They're out there. They're very assertive and everything else, even though we're not going into politics right now. But some of the things that might be fostering might just not be the perfect for the time that we're in, especially for people.
Yeah, I do. And I think sometimes we equate those smooth talking, confident people with leaders, and then we sort of bestow this leadership potential on them, when actually the content of what they're saying is maybe not leadership material. And I'm not saying whether that is or isn't the case in the case of Trump, but people get to powerful positions, and then we have to hear a hell of a lot more of what they've got to say because they've been given this powerful position. Sometimes the power's not bestowed on them because what they were saying was wise or kind or helpful.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you've redefined this and made it easy for people to sort of follow through and see themselves as, a better sort of thought leader. Maybe we can start from there. What are maybe some of the things or attributes of somebody who would be an authentic thought leader?
I think so where I'm going with the better idea is that if we can have better conversations and we have better ideas out there in the world, then we've got a far greater chance of arriving at good outcomes and, better, more inclusive solutions for people, right? So really my point is I'm trying to encourage even the quiet or the timid or the reluctant to also share the helpful things that they could contribute and take up a little bit of space with those. And the authenticity comes in that I want them to know that they don't need to embody this, I call it the sage on the stage persona. They don't need to become what they see some of the popularized thought leaders as looking like in order to be effective, because actually the traits that those quieter, more thoughtful people have, those can be superpowers for thought leadership as well. And they're things like they're sometimes less certain about what they're saying, which whilst we know that we're swayed by confidence, and that confidence tends to, we equate that with competence, even though they're not always correlated at all. When we show sort of the gaps in what we're saying, the things we're less sure about, we leave room for other people to think differently or to share their perspectives. And in doing so, they buy into and take on board more of the ideas that we are sharing. You can actually be more compelling because you take people's defenses down when you show that there's a little bit of grey area, or there's some stuff that you haven't solved yet either. So things like that, which are typically traits of those less forthright people, they can be incredible superpowers and can be really effective at actually helping your ideas have better impact. Absolutely. And I think lead us to more productive, respectful discussions and debate too. We need to come at things with way more than just one perspective. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I like that. You see, in my culture, I think we were talking about this earlier on, we also have a concept where it's sort of like, depending on what scenario it is, you only talk if you've been given a stick. And yeah, all right. So when you're in a circle, in a group of people, you literally have to wait your turn to be given a stick, and then you can then speak, which then allows everyone's opinion and perspective to be heard. Because so many people, we always say this, that if you're a taller person, obviously what you can see is ahead, but there's people that can see what's on the ground, and then they are the ones that can see the ants and the snakes. So how are you going to be able to see that if all you're seeing is, yes, there's animals? I'm talking about a hunting scenario here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know what I mean? So if you don't allow those that are obviously closer to the ground, to speak in that sort of aspect, guess what's going to happen? You are also not going to see those things that are coming from the bottom. I don't know how you sort of see that aspect, or maybe view that in terms of a modern scenario.
Yeah, it's very true. I think leaders are within organizations, are becoming more aware of needing diverse voices and different perspectives. And I think, there are strategies abound that help people facilitating a meeting to get more of everybody's voices contributing. And that's within an organization is an area where a leader can have some control over that, or some influence as to how that plays out. I think we also need to look for it and all act as sort of proactive agents of that when we're talking about the conversations that happen in the wider sort of public sphere. There's no one facilitator of those conversations. So I think we're all responsible for challenging our thinking and finding people who think differently to us, or are seeing things in a different way, or have processed something differently, or exactly like you said, are looking at it from a different perspective. I love the talking stick thing too. My sons, and I reference this in the book, they do this philosophy class at school. They're in primary school years 2 and 4, and they have something. One of the classes has a Pokemon, like a Pikachu character, and they call it the Speakachu instead of the Pikachu, because if you're not the one holding that little stuffed toy, your mouth should be zipped, right? And you're listening respectfully and taking on board other people's viewpoints and arguments, and they are being it's quite a structured conversation, but they are being very proactively taught to engage respectfully with ideas and challenge each other's thinking without challenging the person, and adding to and building from and reframing and all of those good things in a way that I honestly don't think, being at school 30 years ago, we were taught in the same way. They feel miles ahead of where a generation prior was, which gives me a little bit of hope for the for the conversations that are coming.
Great stuff. So with the Better Book Project, it's actually a significant initiative of Intelligent Ink Press and things like that. What inspired its creation, and how does it sort of support aspiring authors?
The Better Book Project specifically?
Yes.
That came about, I was quite resistant to doing anything like a group program or a scaled offering because as a probably implied already, I'm I don't know, I'm just a skeptic, to be honest. And so I didn't want to be seen to peddle something like that. But our purpose as a business, and we only have a small team, there's just a handful of us, but our purpose as a business always has been and still is to get more of the great ideas out into the world. So we were helping clients do that via ghostwriting and sometimes kind of one-on-one coaching and editing their books. But there's a very specific kind of capped capacity to that. We can't be ghostwriting 12 books at the same time, not one of us individually. And because we don't use AI to write, some of the team use it for research and things, but we don't use it for any content creation. There's a lot of like time and mental energy involved in pulling someone's book together. So we looked at it and we thought either we need to grow a much bigger team, which has, different consequences and ramifications, or we need to find a way to help more. Like we're not contributing hugely to the ideascape and all these great ideas being out in the world if we can only write and publish half a dozen books a year between us. So the Better Book Project was a slightly more scaled way of doing that. So it's authors that want to write their books themselves, but want to do it with an experienced guide alongside them. So they're in a group where they can talk to each other and to us, our book coaches, and we walk alongside them, they walk alongside each other, and we also edit their work and provide lots of feedback and challenge and idea development and stuff on the way, as well as some like learning modules and things around structure and titles and publishing and all of those things. So it's basically just a way to give a little bit more of the heavy lifting to those authors who want to write it, can write it themselves. And if the ones that do, like, there's absolutely a place for ghostwriting, and not knocking that in any way, but if you can write your book yourself with the right support kind of team around you, there is very little that rivals that in terms of professional and personal growth and development. Like your immersion in your ideas, and therefore the confidence that you have in yourself and your ideas as a result, is huge. And you forego a little bit of that when someone else is writing it for you. Same way that you would forego a lot of that if you took a shortcut like AI as well. Absolutely. You're not being the one physically wrestling those ideas. And you get these incredible virtuous cycles with things like when you are working that proactively with your thinking and your IP and your ideas, and you're also then delivering work and value in that same space, which all of these people are. They're writing about the thing that they do professionally. There is so much crossover, and you'll have these ideas in your book writing time. You'll take those into conversations with clients or prospects or your team, or a new delivery thing that you're developing or working on. You get feedback on that. That all comes back into, the writing, and, so it goes through the process. So there is nothing quite as rewarding as that, I think. And that's what the Better Book Project enables. But people don't have to do the journey solo, which is freaking hard to do by yourself, write a book.
Oh, absolutely. Tell me about that. I'm undergoing that myself, and I can only attest to that. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of confrontation with yourself, your ideas, and then there's also getting outside of some comfort zones and, you know, just really facing your own fears. What if people don't like this? What if people are going to argue with me? Oh my God, this is going to be a permanent record of what I'm creating, all of that.
Exactly. Yep.
Now, facing your own fears and also pushing past comfort zones seems to be a recurring theme in your journey. I mean, obviously, when you started, you had your brother, you know, on a timeline, you know, giving you all those statistics, and that's just really taking you outside of your comfort zone, to say the least. Now, how do you maybe encourage others to maybe do the same in their own thought leadership endeavors? Because once you step out of the crowd, you know, of the herd, you literally are putting your neck on the line. And in Australia, they call it what? Toe poppy. So you can only imagine how that just gets other people to want to shrink in, and then obviously just, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One is it is really hard to see the value of what you are bringing yourself, like, you know, your own expertise, because you know your stuff so well that to you it's natural and it's obvious and it's, you know, surely everybody knows this stuff or could figure this stuff out themselves. But it's really hard to see how special and valuable what you kind of know and bring is. So I would say look for and collect the evidence of that. And that often comes in feedback from others or the results that people are able to get because of what you do with them or for them. Another, that's sort of building the evidence of your expertise. Another part is accepting or kind of remembering always that the inner critic or the imposter syndrome or the critical negative inner voice is there for everybody. Like, it is absolutely universal. The people at the top of their game, the people starting out, they are all hearing that. So when yours pipes up, it's not an indication that you're failing in any way or that you're swerving too far out of your lane or whatever. In fact, when it becomes a little bit shouty, that inner voice, it usually means that you're onto something or that you're doing something that you really care about, because if you didn't, then it wouldn't bother. So remembering that, the universalness of the self-doubt is helpful. And I think we worked with a client actually through the Better Book Project. Her name is Dr. Bex Bell, and she wrote a book called Inner Critic to Inner Coach. And one of the things I love the most about her approach to imposter syndrome is that basically it's not about battling it or banishing it or necessarily even standing up and confronting it head on. If you accept that it's going to be there anyway and it's well-meaning and it's looking out for you, then you can do that and like let it come to the party, but you don't have to give it the microphone, is sort of how I would say it. And she says you can't deal with something constructively if you're treating it as the enemy. But I would say, you know, allow that to be there without letting it call the shots. And I think at the end of the day, you've just got to have enough faith or enough fire that what you're doing matters and is important and can genuinely help people or add value or benefit somehow to the world. And that's the bit that you've got to hold on to, even when it sucks and even when it's hard and even when, you know, you need, like, do it with people around you that believe in you, whatever it is, however you're putting it out there, because there will be times you need picking up off the floor. And so, yeah, people that believe in you and your ideas are crucial to helping you get past. You can be well-meaning about, I'm not going to let the imposter syndrome slow me down, but there'll be days when it does. And on those days, having other people help you through it is important too. That kind of answered the question. I feel like I went on a really roundabout way.
It's absolutely beautiful the way you say it. because so many of us, no matter how we might be experts or authorities within the message that we're going through, and some of the stuff is through lived experience. So we are outright experts in it. But when it then comes to the presentation of it, I've noticed you've got a process for people to break down content and things of that nature. And amongst that, I noticed video. And I was just thinking to myself, wow, okay, you see, video is one of those things that I think it was Seinfeld that said, I'd rather be the person in the coffin than the person giving the eulogy. And now you're also putting out a video as a permanent record out there, that unless they delete all of the internet, it's going to be a very lasting, present piece of evidence that is never going to go away until maybe I do. What's your perception on video, and how do you approach it, especially when it comes to thought leadership?
I've taken a long time to get on board the video bandwagon. A really long, an embarrassingly long time. I don't find it easy to look into a camera and say things. In fact, I still avoid it like the plague. But I can have conversations with people. So I think, again, it's about finding the way that you can show up as you and still be effective. So if you need to do video, think about there's a couple of things. One is if you're ultimately really comfortable with the content of what you're saying, you will come across better regardless of the format. So if you were going to show up on video, don't pick a topic that you know a little bit about or that you're still exploring. Pick something that you are really comfortable in and use that to try video first. Or, in my case, I still ask people can we just have a conversation? Like this sort of thing, right? Like an interview or a conversation that we're having. I can talk to that, but if you just said, right, turn your phone to selfie mode and hit record, I'd just fall over myself and not stutter, but seriously just muck up words. It's like all the thoughts are coming like a herd of elephants trying to get through one doorway, just a mess when it comes to that. But I can organize my thoughts verbally to have a conversation. So I try and do videos of this sort of nature, as opposed to those down the barrel of a lens ones. And it just feels more achievable to me. And I think that's the thing. Meet yourself where you are. Do what can work.
I like that. I like that a lot, because so many people, just because they've seen maybe Christina on video, they're going to want to go and be seen on video, whereas it doesn't come natural to them. You know what I mean? Or maybe somebody like myself, I see another podcaster playing a guitar, and then there I am. I don't even know how to hold the thing, and whoever is watching is just going to be like, that's not how we do it, so it's things like that just take away from the authority and the depth of the message that you're automatically putting out there. Now, for those that are maybe watching right now, Christina, who might have a valuable idea, because everyone has an idea, because I obviously believe in life, we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. So in order for you to live the best life, you need to have learned, and obviously looking behind you and all the other people, you would have learned something at least that could help somebody be doing and have a happier existence. In any case, you can literally teach a kid to tie their laces, and that could save them a lifetime of falling down in embarrassment. So that's something that anyone
wearing Velcro shoes as an adult.
So if somebody feels sort of reluctant to share their ideas, what sort of steps can they take to now begin their journey towards, maybe thought leadership, really?
I think I would say a couple of things. I would say the message is the important bit. So the content is far more important than you and your kind of comfort. I guess by that I'm saying is people go, I don't want to elevate myself as a thought leader. I don't want the fame or the attention or the notoriety or whatever. You actually don't, it doesn't need to be about you at all. it can be about the ideas, and really then you owe it to the ideas, right, to get them out there well. I would also say just start in the however small little ways feel comfortable to you. Just start putting things out there. And don't get caught up in particular channels or formats. So you said about video, and the bit that I wanted to add there, but it's good advice, to answer this question as well, is no one channel matters more than all the other ones. So you don't have to speak on stage. You don't have to do video. You don't have to write LinkedIn posts. There are short form channels to market that work well, and there are long form ones. Obviously a book is a really long form one, but as is a podcast interview or even a TED talk that's much longer than a 30-second clip that you're going to film of yourself talking. You need a mixture of those things, but you can come up with the mixture that works for you. And why I say you need a mixture of short form and long form is they do different jobs. So short form is engaging, attention grabbing, all of those sorts of things, but it sacrifices some nuance and some complexity and some depth and often evidence and all of those sorts of things too. But if you just write really freaking long things like huge big white papers for people to trawl through or full-length books and that's all, you're asking quite a lot of people who you haven't really enrolled their attention first. So you need a mixture of both. And I think to be able to do both also shows that you really do have a good command of your thinking and ideas. You need to be able to boil it down. It's like the expanding it out to that long form shows the depth and breadth of your thinking and the real robustness of your expertise, but you have to be able to contract it too to get something easily digestible for people. So have a mix of both for your own sake, so you know that you understand the ideas, but also for people who are trying to engage with them. You can use short things to capture their attention and then still offer the longer, more complete sort of resources or whatever for people that want to go further as well.
I like that. I like that a lot. And for those people that are maybe interested and a bit keen on finding out or learning more about maybe your services and how you work, what would be the best way that people can get a hold of you, or what would be the first thing they should do?
Probably connecting on LinkedIn is the best way. That's where I share the most tips and examples of what we do, and obviously there's the messaging function there. So finding me on LinkedIn would be a good one. You can go to our website, but like most people, we know we cringe a little because it's never quite as up to date as we want it to be. And obviously there are places to buy the book as well, either directly or through bookstores or on Amazon. But the book is a great illustration of our purpose and why we do what we do and what I care kind of the most deeply about. And then there's obviously the services we deliver, which are a little bit
Absolutely. Well,
parallel to that.
I already have front row access to that, so I'm not going to be worried about any of that. But I also encourage people to check out the book M.E.D.I.A on Amazon. I'll be putting all those links in the show notes so that you can actually get started on your journey. I think it's time for your voice to be heard. And so many of us are probably sitting on a gold mine, but taking the words out of Christina's mouth for real, she said, it's not about you. It's not about you at all. And I also heard her saying, she didn't say it this way, but I'm going to say it to you. Who are you to stop the next person from getting ideas from you that could possibly save their life? I mean, are you that important that you won't want to show up and deliver that message so that others can do and have a happier existence? And I think if you think of it in that sort of space, then it just really humbles you, and then you maybe have a look at your camera and start filming those videos. I don't know, but it's
Yeah,
also a matter of self-awareness and things like that. Now,
it
Christina,
is.
I can't thank you enough. First of all, thank you so much for giving me access to your book, and then access to
You're
you
welcome.
and also your team. We've had people from your business on the show prior, and it's just been a remarkable experience. But also just looking at you as a person, you introduced us to the lollipop girl and the ice cream loving girl who ended up telling people that their menus are mediocre. So I don't know what you have to clear yourself. I mean, were you just a grammar Nazi, or have you now become a grammar nicely? Because that.
I try and do it nicely. I am the only person I know who proofreads her text messages before she hits send, though. I do feel like there's a professional, I don't know, an extra high standard on me. So you can imagine how many times my book got proofread before it went out, because I was like, oh goodness, it's not allowed to have any mistakes.
Great, but you've become a grammar nicely, right?
I think so.
Great stuff. Now, I mean, you did touch up on you not utilizing AI and things of that nature, but where do you see the future of thought leadership? I mean, with AI now having access to all the information that was ever indexed on the internet, it's going to be very difficult to come up with new ideas. So maybe where do you see the future of thought leadership in the wake of AI and all this technology that we now have?
I think it's going to get noisier. Well, I think it already is noisier. There is no barrier to kind of creating content anymore, but I hope that we maintain the same discerning noses for what is original thought and what isn't. Like, I think so far, most people with, general intelligence they're already starting to wise up to, that doesn't sound like a human. Or that doesn't look like a human. So I hope that stays, to be honest, but it's a scary space. It's a scary space. I think the thing about thought leaders is they're trying to influence people's thinking in new ways. And as yet, AI can't do that. So it is just curating existing ideas. So there's still room for original thought, and I think it's thought leaders who will lead in that space.
Absolutely. I read somewhere that no matter how far we go in life, we still can't download a hug. So no matter what, I think thought leaders just now need to, really connect with their audiences and be there for them while they're paving, the direction that people want to go to. And that alone, people will follow you for that. So
Yeah,
Christina, I
there's
can thank you.
nothing. The resonance and connection piece is absolutely still the domain of humans, and I'm grateful for that. I hope it remains that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Christina, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call today. I mean, your insightful journey, your life story, and just your dedication to authentic thought leadership is truly inspiring. So many people are trying to game the system or just trying to do enough just so that they maybe get bestseller status. I didn't even see that on your book, you know what I mean? Because
Not there. Wasn't the strategy.
yeah, exactly. That's something that I know, Is it, are you best at selling the book, or are you actually the best at influencing people? There's a whole thing out there, and I think that authenticity really, really shone through on the call today. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching right now, if you're eager to get started on your own path to influence, I would, suggest you consider reaching out to Christina and her team at Intelligent Inc. And you can learn more about their services at intelligent.ink. I thought that was a typo, but you guys, you're thought leaders, right? So obviously you're leading that thought into the future. So yeah, so intelligent.ink, and also just grab yourself the book Better. Even if you know what I mean, you don't want to, if you want to just dip your feet into having an understanding of how you can put your voice out there in an authentic manner. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show, where more enlightening conversations like this take center stage. Because in the next episode, as I have been informed, we're going to be talking about how to cultivate a happier existence. And if you found today's discussion, valuable, just share this podcast with somebody who's an aspiring thought leader. And just maybe don't scare them with the part where Christina's brother was telling her about those stats about how many businesses don't make it past the 5-year mark. But I think all the other insights will definitely be of value to them. Until next time, bye for now.